The conspiracy theory that led a man to kill 10 people in Buffalo may be much more popular than you might have expected among Trump voters. So as we covered whenever we talked about the mass shooting in Buffalo, there's this very dangerous conspiracy theory called the Great Replacement Theory that has been peddled now by all of the big right-wing people, but the person we focused in on was Tucker Carlson. And the theory pretty much goes, there's an elite group of people, sometimes just specifically the Democrats, who are trying to replace native-born Americans, wink wink, and they are a lot of times are specifically talking about white people with non-white immigrants or just immigrants generally from the third world. That's the way that it's told in different levels of vagueness. Sometimes specifically people say white people are being replaced by non-white people. Sometimes people like Tucker Carlson code it a little bit more, saying that native-born or legacy Americans are being replaced by, as he called them, more obedient voters from the third world. And as you can see in that statement, voters is the key word. They try to justify all of the fear about this by making it a political thing. Oh, they're trying to replace our voters. This isn't at all about race or about being scared of the other. This is just they're trying to replace the electorate with other voters. And so just to remind you, here's a few clips of Tucker Carlson talking about this very theory.
In other words, you're being replaced and there's nothing you can do about it. So shut up. The Great Replacement Theory, it's a lie, they yelled. George Soros has nothing to do with that. Stop talking. They said we were espousing something called the Great Replacement Theory, a well-known racist fantasy. The Great Replacement. They acknowledge that it's real and they love it. This policy is called the Great Replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans with more obedient people from faraway countries. The Great Replacement Plan is working. Left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement. If you suggest that the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. But they become hysterical because that's what's happening, actually. Let's just say it, that's true.
So the general idea is the Democrats want to help themselves in elections by bringing in a bunch of immigrants from, specifically, as he said, the third world. And as he has said many times on his show, as well as tons of other right-wing media figures, these people make our country more dirty and less safe. So there's so many elements of this that we have to get into, but first, let's talk about why are we bringing this up today? Well, a poll came out showing that 61% of people who voted for Donald Trump in the 2020 election believe a group of people in this country are trying to replace native-born Americans with immigrants and people of color who share their political views. So 61% of Trump voters said in a poll that there's a group of people trying to replace native-born Americans with not just immigrants, but also people of color generally. And like I said, the justification they use is that this is about politics. They're trying to replace the current electorate with people who agree with their opinions more. But I don't think people understand how immigration works. We don't go out and pick who we want to immigrate here. There's just bunch of people who try to immigrate, and we only have the choice of either accepting certain people or not. And it deeply fascinates me that just the simple fact that immigration, specifically the ones they're more concerned about, are across the southern border, would instantly be Democratic voters. Why is that? And just hold, we have to get into a bunch of different elements of this. But the first one is, why do you assume that the simple fact that people are coming across the southern border from South American countries are going to be Democratic voters? Hey, immigration is a thing that happens if people come here and become citizens through a very long and rigorous process. And after years of going through all that, they finally become a citizen and want to vote in the election. Why can't the Republican Party appeal to them also? And I also don't think people will realize how long and brutal of a process that would be if that was the actual Democratic Party strategy to win more votes. Whenever you line up the amount of immigrants that actually come in compared to how many of them who vote, and then you line that up with how long it takes them to become a citizen, and then you line that up with how they vote Republican and Democrat, that would not be a strategy to help Democrats swing elections anytime in the near future. I mean, this isn't even, there's not any evidence that there is an actual effort by the Democratic Party to do this, but even if they were, it wouldn't make any sense strategically. That would not be an efficient way for them to significantly grow their voter base. And then the other thing that makes this crazy is that the Biden administration is expelling and deporting so many people. So if the Democratic strategy was to bring in a bunch of immigrants from the third world, as they say, as many as possible, and not be expelling, just under using Title 42, 1 million expulsions in 2021. Now, if you react to that number like a million, what are you talking about? There actually are repeat border crossings. They're saying a significant amount of those are people who came multiple times and so had to get expelled multiple times, and each one of those times counted towards that total number. So it's not actually a million people who were expelled, but still a million expulsions just in 2021 of people who were trying to enter the country. And that's of course under Title 42, which was a COVID era policy that allowed the US government to expel more people than usual. So if there was a grand scheme, really think about this. If you're conservative and you believe this theory, the way you would try to do that is to shorten the process it takes to become a citizen, right? You would let all the immigrants in and fast track them all through the process. No, we're seeing tons be deported. We're seeing tons being expelled right at the border, and we're not seeing the process being made significantly more efficient. So again, no evidence that this is some plot by Democrats, but there's actually anti-evidence. There's evidence directly against this theory because the Biden administration is clearly not just letting in as many immigrants as possible. And this is what drives me insane about people who say Biden has opened the border. Really, we just looked at 2021. 1 million expulsions. Again, a lot of those are repeat border crossings, but still hundreds of thousands of expulsions under Title 42. So clearly we don't have an open border. Please operate off of facts, I beg you. But the scariest part about this is for many of those voters, the big fear is not necessarily that sometime way in the future there could be some long-term effect of immigration that causes the Democratic Party to have some more power because for some reason the Republican Party can't appeal to immigrants. I don't know why. They could totally appeal to them if they wanted to, but they just decide not to. But okay, let's just say that's not the genuine fear. Clearly, what they're so afraid about, as was said in that poll, it says immigrants or people of color are trying to replace native-born Americans. Why is it even relevant if it's separate from immigrants, just they're trying to replace you with people of color? Why is that even a thing that we're talking about in the conversation of immigrants? You're just saying people of color generally? And 61% of Republicans say, yep. Okay, so the fear really, when you get down to it, maybe you're a little bit concerned with the political landscape changing, but the primary fear is that people who don't look like you will be a part of your country. Well, as we laid out there, tons of those people are being turned around. But the ones who are coming in, that is what makes America so great. I mean, we get people from all over the world, they move here for the American dream, and we make something amazing out of it. That's what we've done since the beginning of America. We were immigrants and we started the United States, and each step along the way, we were made better by all of the different minds, all of the different cultures that came here and made America the beautiful melting pot that it is. When we talk about this, 61% of Trump voters have this belief. That is super concerning because as we saw in Buffalo, that belief led a man to killing 10 innocent people. The poll says, are people trying to replace you with people of color? 61% of Trump voters say, yes. A man goes in to a supermarket in Buffalo and shoots black people because he thought people of color were replacing him. This is such a dangerous belief, and it's not founded in the truth. We've had immigration for our entire history. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. And then I have to address, the word replace makes no sense. What do you mean replacing you? Where are you going? You're right, you're gonna stay here. There's just gonna be someone else next to you, and probably not at the rates of immigration we're seeing. You probably won't even notice. But even if you did, God forbid, meet someone who immigrated here, this generation, they're not replacing you. They're just adding on next to you. This theory that a significant majority of Trump voters believe in is, for one, not founded in the facts, 2, is very dangerous, and 3, appeals to the worst part of each one of these people, being so afraid of the other. And that's all this theory is. And like I said, it's not even founded in reality, but it is appealing to the part of some people that is what I think one of the worst parts. That is, you cannot accept, get along with, allow people who don't look like you, who might be slightly different than you, to live in your country, even though that is what we've done our entire history and what has made America the amazing country that it is. And again, the rates that we're seeing because the Biden administration is turning around so many people and deporting so many people, it's not some crazy thing that's gonna change and everyone's gonna notice. You're not even gonna notice. So just chill out. So concerning stuff, to say the least. I'll close this with just saying, since the beginning of time, the way that con men like Tucker Carlson, like a lot of these right-wing figures like Donald Trump, have distracted you from the real problems is by telling you the issue is down there. Look down, stomp on the people who are below you. They're the cause of your real issues. Don't look up. Don't look at all the people who really have the power, who have really rigged the system against you. No. Look at the immigrants, some of the least powerful people in our society. They're the ones causing your life to be more difficult. Come on, please. Stop looking down. Stop looking at people who are also just working, trying to get by, like you, trying to get a better life for their family. They're not the ones causing you any issues, I promise. The way that we improve all of our lives is by mobilizing all of us, not dividing among the people, but unifying the people around changing the system in such a way that it serves our interests better and not just those at the top.